I thought I was a husband, a father, and now I am nothing in my family. They smiled in my face for years. Burr for what they did it. Am still shocked. Throwaway account. No clue how to even process what's going on. I've been sitting in my car for hours, rereading hospital documents, and my hands are still shaking. I thought I had the kind of life that people call normal. Stable job, married young, bought the same house I grew up in when my mom moved to Florida. My wife and I had our first kid a few years ago. I cried harder the day my son was born than I did at my own wedding. The second I held him, I thought, this is the best thing I've ever done. But I've learned in the past few weeks that normal is an illusion, a smokescreen, and my life, it's not just abnormal, it's something I don't have a name for. I'll start from where things began to get weird. Our son, Jake, got sick. He was 4, caught a cold, then a fever, then another cold that wouldn't go away. My wife, Amanda, thought he might be developing asthma. The pediatrician wasn't sure. A few more visits, and we ended up getting referred to a children's hospital just to be safe. The first real red flag came during a routine test. They found something off in his white blood cell count. I don't want to get too medical, but the doctors said it might be an autoimmune thing. Maybe leukemia, maybe not. It was early. They needed more tests. They also needed blood samples from both parents to check for compatibility. Fine. I rolled up my sleeve right there in the hospital room. Amanda went next. We waited. During all this, I should mention, Amanda had been acting off for a while. Distant, tired, irritable. I chalked it up to stress from work and parenting. We'd both been under pressure. She's a paralegal, works crazy hours. I'm a warehouse supervisor. Not glamorous, but solid. We've had fights, sure, but never anything major. Definitely nothing that prepared me for what came next. Anyway, 2 days after the blood test, we get a call to come back in. But not from the doctor. This time it's a hospital administrator. That's when I started feeling it. That buzz in your gut when you know something's off. They sat us down in a private room. The kind with a box of tissues already on the table. They started talking around it. There's been a discrepancy. Parental genetic marker. Non-paternity result. I stared at the guy like he was reading off a Starbucks order. Finally, I just said it out loud. You're saying I'm not his father? Amanda didn't speak, didn't blink, just stared down at her hand. The administrator paused, then nodded. The world cracked. I wish I could describe it better, but it felt like my body stayed in the chair while the rest of me fell through the floor. Couldn't look at Amanda. Couldn't think. All I said was, run it again. They had 3 times. I left the hospital without another word. Sat in my car. Called my dad. Let me pause here and say this. My dad and I weren't best friends or anything, but we were close. Closer than I ever was with my mom. He was the guy I called when the boiler broke or when Jake said his first word. I grew up thinking he hung the moon. So when I found out I wasn't Jake's father and my first instinct was to call him, that says everything. I told him I needed to talk. He said to come by. I drove to his place and he opened the door like nothing was wrong. Offered me a beer. Same as always. And you know what really gets me? That night when Jake was born, my dad held him before I did. Amanda was exhausted. I was crying too hard to move. So they handed him to my father. He stood there rocking him, calling him my little champ. Now that image makes my stomach turn. Not because of what I know. Not yet, because at that point I didn't know. But because of what came later. That night, after I told my dad what the hospital said, he looked nervous, like he already knew. I didn't pick up on it at first. I thought maybe he was just shocked. But now, looking back, there were signs. A twitch in his jaw. The way he kept clearing his throat. How he said, well, these things happen, son, and wouldn't make eye contact. Not like this, I said. I started pressing him. Did you know? Did Amanda say anything to you? Did anyone else know? He just kept shaking his head. But something was off. I went home that night and didn't speak to Amanda. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, arms crossed, like she was waiting for a trial. All I said was, how long? She didn't answer. I left, slept in the car, called in sick the next day. I was unraveling. I needed answers, but I wasn't ready for the one that hit me next, because the next answer didn't come from Amanda. It came from my mother, and that changed everything. I didn't sleep, couldn't. I sat in the car watching the sky go from black to gray without ever closing my eyes. At 7:12 a.m., I called my mom. Now, let me explain something. My mom and I, different story from my dad. She's always been reserved, the kind of woman who doesn't say much unless it's necessary. She was a nurse before she retired and had the kind of emotional armor you only get from spending 30 years in hospital. When she talks, you listen, because she doesn't waste breath. I called her and she picked up on the second ring. Hey, I said, voice cracking. You okay? She asked. And immediately, I knew she'd heard something. I need to talk, I said, face to face. She didn't ask why. Just said, come over. I'll make coffee. When I pulled into her driveway, she was already at the door. She had her robe on. No makeup. Hair tied back. The expression on her face wasn't surprise. It was something else. Something I couldn't name yet. Not sadness. Not fear. Almost like guilt. I sat at her kitchen table, hands still shaking, and just blurted it out. The hospital ran blood tests. I'm not Jake's father. She didn't say a word. So I said it again. Mom, I'm not Jake's biological father. And you know what she did? She put down the coffee mug she was holding. Carefully. Deliberately. Then she sat across from me, reached out, and placed her hand over mine like I was 8 years old again and had just fallen off my bike. I know, she whispered. Everything Something in me went cold. You know, I repeated. I had my suspicions, she said, but I wasn't sure. I wanted to be wrong. I pulled my hand away and stood up like her words physically burned me. What are you talking about, Mom? She didn't look up. Then she asked me something I'll never forget. Have you talked to your father yet? That's when something cracked. Yeah, I did. He didn't tell me anything. Just stood there acting like I was overreacting. My mom finally looked up. Her eyes were red. Wet. I need you to listen to me, she said slowly, and I need you to stay calm. Can you do that? I nodded. I think I did. I don't even remember. Then she said it. I think your father might be Jake's biological father. I sat down so fast I nearly missed the chair. My whole body just gave out. That's insane, I said. That's what the hell are you even saying right now? She leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. Amanda and your father were close. Too close. I didn't want to believe it. I thought maybe I was just imagining things. You all lived in that house together back then, and sometimes things felt off. She paused. Her eyes flicked to the window, like she was remembering something she'd buried a long time ago. There were moments, she said. I'd walk in and they go quiet. Amanda always laughed a little too much at his joke. He'd compliment her in front of me like I wasn't even there. It was subtle, but I noticed. I stared at her, heart pounding. Why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't want to believe it, she said, voice shaking. And because I thought if it were true, it would tear this family apart. Too late for that now. I left without another word. Didn't even grab the coffee. Drove straight to a private DNA testing clinic I found on Google. I wasn't waiting for hospitals, administrators, or processing time. I needed confirmation. I needed truth, cold, fast, undeniable. I swabbed myself. I brought in Jake the next day. Told Amanda it was for more follow-up testing. She didn't ask a single question. No pushback. Just nodded like she knew it was inevitable. 3 days later, I got an email. It said 0% probability of paternity. That wasn't new. I'd already known, but I wasn't done yet. I sent another test request that same day, this time with a hair sample I'd pulled from my dad's old sweatshirt at his house. A week later, I got the results. 99.98% match. I sat there on the floor of my living room, lights off, just staring at the screen. My dad was Jake's biological father. My father, the man who gave me my first baseball glove, who taught me how to drive, who gave a toast at my wedding. He didn't just betray me, he replaced me. And the worst part? I didn't see it coming. I called Amanda, told her to come home. I said I knew everything. She showed up an hour later. You know how some people break down when they get caught? Cry, beg, deny? Amanda didn't do any of that. She sat down on the couch and said, I always knew it would come out eventually. That's it. Like this was some scratch-off ticket that finally got revealed. I asked her, why him? Of all people, why my dad? She said it started as harmless flirtation, that it made her feel seen, that I was always working late, always tired, that he made her feel wanted. I asked her how long it went on. She didn't answer. That was the moment something snapped in me. Not rage, not sadness, just nothing. I stood up, walked out, got in my truck, drove around for 2 hours with no destination. I ended up at a gas station 2 towns over eating a gas station burrito at 11 p.m., wondering how the hell my life had become a rejected daytime drama plot. And then my phone rang. It was my mom, and she was crying. Your father confessed, she said. I didn't say a word. He told me everything. Her voice broke. I've left him. I'm staying with my sister. I had no idea how deep it went. I'm so sorry. And that's when the last thread in my family finally snapped. My dad, the man who raised me, had slept with my wife under our roof while we were married, and while I was working my ass off to support us all. My mother left him. Amanda started packing her things. Jake, my son, who is now technically my brother, has no idea what's happening. And me, I'm sitting here writing this post, wondering if any of this even qualifies as a family anymore. Let me be clear, I didn't plan it. I didn't rehearse what I was going to say. Didn't even know if I was going to say anything. But after getting that call from my mom, after hearing her sob like that, I knew I had to see him face to face. So the next evening, after Jake was asleep at Amanda's temporary apartment, yes, she moved out within a week, I drove over to my dad's house. Funny thing, even after all this, I still knocked. He opened the door like nothing was wrong, like I was just there to borrow a wrench. He looked older than I remembered, not in the gray hair kind of way, just depleted, smaller. I stepped inside without saying a word. He didn't try to stop me, just stepped aside and shut the door behind me. We stood in the foyer in silence for a good 20 seconds. Then he said the dumbest possible thing. I was wondering when you'd come by. I turned to him, dead in the eye. I want to hear it from you. All of it. He walked to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water, took a sip like this with some casual ketchup, and then he said it. It started about 5 years ago, a few months before Jake was born. I didn't interrupt. I needed to hear him say it. We were spending a lot of time together. You and Amanda moved in while you were doing the house renovations. Remember? Oh, I remember. She'd get home before you. I was already retired. We talked. It started innocent. Then it wasn't. He paused. I didn't mean for it to happen. That's when I snapped. You didn't mean for it to happen? I repeated louder. You accidentally tripped and fell into my wife? His jaw tightened, but he didn't raise his voice. She was lonely. You were working late. You were always stressed. I was just there. You were my dad, I said, stepping forward. You watched me marry her. You gave a speech. You held our kid in the hospital. You sat in my damn living room while I built a crib. His hands trembled. He set down the glass. I know. No, you don't. You don't know what it's like to find out your son isn't yours. You don't know what it's like to realize your father, your own flesh and blood, lied to your face for years. He sat sat down at the kitchen table, rubbed his eyes like this was hard for him. Then he said the line I'll never forget. She came to me. I went silent. She made the first move, he continued. I tried to shut it down, but she kept showing up, saying things, dressing different. I was lonely too. Your mom and I hadn't been right in years. So now it was Amanda's fault? Unreal. You're seriously blaming her? I asked. I'm saying it wasn't one-sided. I walked over to the table and leaned in close. You were the adult. You were my father. There was one person in that equation who had a responsibility not to cross a line. He didn't argue. He just looked up at me with this exhausted, almost pitiful expression. I regret it every day. Not enough to stop. Silence. I stood there, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Then I said what I came to say. You're never seeing Jake again. Not without a court order. He flinched. That's not fair. He's my grandson. No, he's your son. And my brother. You gave up any right to play grandpa the day you climbed into my wife's bed. I turned around and walked toward the door. That's when he said something that stopped me cold. You still raised him. You're the one who changed his diapers, taught him to ride a bike. He still calls you dad. I didn't even turn around. I used to think that meant something. Then I left. That was 4 days ago. Since then, everything has spun out. Amanda's parents found out. Her mother actually slapped her when she told them. They offered to help raise Jake if I didn't want to. My mom's still staying with her sister. She filed for divorce yesterday. Says she wants nothing from him. She just wants peace. And then there's Jake. Jake, who still asks why daddy and mommy live in different houses now. Who thinks grandpa is on vacation. Who wants to know when we're all going to the zoo again. I don't have the heart to tell him the truth yet. But here's the part no one really prepares you for. People keep asking me, what are you going to do? Are you going to give up custody? Are you going to tell him who his real dad is someday? I don't know. He's not my son, but he's also not my son. I taught him how to tie his shoes. I watched him fall asleep with his blanket tucked under his chin. I was there the first time he got a fever and the first time he called someone dada. I was that someone. Does DNA erase that? I don't know. All I know is I look in the mirror and see a stranger. And I look at Jake and feel like I've lost something I can't even name. But I still tuck him in every night because he doesn't know yet. And until I decide how to tell him, the only thing I can do is be there. Even if I'm not sure who I am to him anymore. I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to tell Jake anything until I had a full plan. A therapist, a custody lawyer, someone to help guide me through how to talk to a 4-year-old about something that no 4-year-old should ever have to hear. But then the decision got made for me. It started like a normal morning. Jake had his little backpack on. We were running late as usual. He was telling me about some girl in his class who only eats crackers and won't share. I was half listening, half drinking my coffee and trying not to spill it in traffic. I dropped him off, kissed the top of his head, told him I'd pick him up at 3:15 sharp. At 2:50, I got a call from the school. It was the counselor. Hey, Mr. Harper, do you have a few minutes? I think you should come in. I asked if Jake was okay. He's not hurt, but something came up during art time. I just think it's better if we talk in person. 15 minutes later, I was sitting in a tiny office with duck-shaped magnets on a whiteboard and a framed poster that said, "Feelings are friends." The counselor, Mrs. Kinley, was holding a piece of paper. She handed it to me. It was a drawing. A family tree. Crayon. Classic pre-K style. Circles for heads. Spaghetti lines for limbs. At the top were mommy and grandpa. Not daddy. Grandpa. Below that, in big letters, me. I stared at it, speechless. I asked her, did he say anything? Mrs. Kinley nodded. Jake said his grandpa is his real dad. That's what mommy told him. He said, my real daddy is grandpa, but I live with my fake daddy because he makes the best pancakes. My hands started shaking. I asked her if any other kids saw. She nodded again. Yes, and a few were confused. One of them asked, can grandpas be dads? That's when I knew we were past the point of no return. Amanda told him, without asking me, without warning, without a plan, just dumped that nuclear truth on a kid who still gets juice on his shirt every day. I thanked the counselor, folded the drawing, and left. Jake came out of class with his usual grin, oblivious. I smiled back, didn't say a word in the car. He asked if we could stop for ice cream. I said sure, vanilla with rainbow sprinkles. His favorite. That night, after he went to sleep, I called Amanda. I didn't yell, didn't scream. I just said, you told him. She didn't deny it. I had to, she said. He was asking questions. He's smart. He's 4, Amanda. I didn't tell him the full thing. Just that. You weren't his biological dad. I kept it simple. You didn't keep anything simple. You dumped the most complicated truth imaginable on a preschooler like it was nothing. She started to get defensive. I wasn't going to lie to him. He deserves to know where he comes from. Then maybe you should have thought about that before screwing your father-in-law. Silence. Then she hung up. I didn't call her back. The next day, I made an appointment with a child psychologist. Not for Jake. For me. I sat in a chair in front of a woman named Dr. Weiss and just unloaded everything. Start to finish. Didn't hold back. Didn't sugarcoat. When I told her about the family tree, she didn't flinch. She just nodded and said, you're going to need to redefine fatherhood. What does that mean? I asked. It means biology is only one part. The emotional bond you have with Jake, that's real. That's not fake. That's not replaceable. Yeah, well, try explaining that to the kid who thinks his dad is his grandpa now. She nodded. Then she said something that hit like a brick. If your father hadn't confessed, would anything have changed about how you saw Jake? I didn't answer, because the answer was no. Before the test, he was my son. After the test, he was still my son. But the betrayal, that's what made made everything right. That weekend, Amanda showed up to pick up Jake. I didn't open the door, just let her knock until she left. Texted her that he'd be staying with me for the week until we figured out how to navigate things through legal channels. She didn't argue. She knew she'd screwed up. I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Just my name, written in handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside were 4 photographs. One was a picture of Amanda and my father at a diner sitting in a booth holding hands, dated 2 years ago. Another was of them in a car park kissing. The last 2 photos of my dad's phone screen text messages. Amanda, I don't know how much longer I can keep this quiet. Dad, just a few more months. We'll figure it out. And this, Amanda, if he ever finds out, he'll hate both of us. There was no note, no name, nothing, just evidence. Someone had been watching and wanted me to know. I don't know who sent it. Private investigator? A neighbor? A former friend? Maybe my mom? Doesn't matter, because now I had physical proof of premeditation. This wasn't a mistake. This was a calculated lie dragged out over years. I handed it all to my lawyer the next day. He looked through everything and said, "We're done playing nice." I asked him, "What are my chances of sole custody?" He said, "Better than they were yesterday." There's a moment in every mess when things stop being confusing and start being clear. Ugly, yes, but clear. That happened the day we went to court. Amanda was there. So was my dad. He showed up, not as a witness, not as support. He'd filed a petition for visitation. He wanted legal rights to Jake. Let me repeat that. My father, who slept with my wife, got her pregnant, and lied about it for years, had the audacity to walk into a courtroom and ask a judge to be recognized as Jake's father. When my lawyer showed me the motion, I laughed. I laughed because it was so far beyond betrayal that I couldn't process it as anything but a joke. But it wasn't. We were called into chamber. The judge wanted to mediate privately, just the adults involved. So Jake wasn't there. Thankfully, it was me, Amanda, my father, and our attorneys, sitting in a small room, air so tense you could crack it with a whisper. The judge, a middle-aged woman with a stare like stone, looked at all of us and said, "This is a highly unusual case, but at its core, this is about a child. Not about your guilt, your pain, or your pride. A child. So speak carefully." Then she asked my dad why he wanted visitation. He said something rehearsed. "I've come to terms with the mistakes I've made. I know I hurt my son and my grandson and everyone involved, but I love that boy, and I want to be in his life as his father." Amanda nodded. She'd clearly been coached. "He deserved to know the truth," she said, "and he deserves to have both of his parents in his life." The judge looked at me. I didn't have a statement prepared, so I said the only thing that came to mind. "Jake already has a father. I was there when he was born. I fed him, bathed him, read to him, held him during fever. I taught him to throw a football. I held his hand at the dentist. I'm the one who told him monsters weren't real." I looked right at my dad, only to find out one was living in our house the whole time. The judge sighed and told us we'd reconvene after reviewing the document. We left the chamber in silence, but in the hallway everything boiled over. I turned to my dad and said, "This ends here. You don't get to rewrite this." He didn't back down. "Not anymore. I'm his biological father. That means something. Not to him, not to me. You're nothing." Amanda stepped between us. "He's Jake's dad now, whether you like it or not." I said, "No, he's Jake's mistake. You two deserve each other." Then my dad did it. He muttered it low under his breath, but loud enough. "You were never strong enough to be a real man in that house." I lost it. Right there in the courthouse lobby, I lunged. I don't remember what I screamed. I just remember people pulling me back, my lawyer grabbing my arm, security stepping in. I didn't hit him, but I wanted to. God, I wanted to. And all he did was smile, like he'd won something. Later that night, my phone rang. It was my mom. She'd heard about the court scuffle. Not from me, from her lawyer. She didn't lecture me, didn't say I should have handled it better. She just said, "I'm sorry you had to find out who your father really is." Then she said quietly, "He's not the man I married. Maybe he never was." That same week, Jake came home from Amanda's and asked me something I wasn't ready for. "Daddy, is Grandpa my dad now?" I froze. "What do you mean, buddy?" He looked up at me, eyes wide. "Mommy said Grandpa's my real dad, but I already have a dad. That's you." I knelt down and held his little face in my hand. "You know what? There's a difference between a real dad and a biological dad." He frowned. "What's biological?" I smiled, barely holding back tears. "It just means someone helped make you. But a real dad, that's the person who stays. The one who tucks you in and checks under the bed and makes your pancake just the way you like them." Jake smiled, "With extra syrup." "Exactly." He nodded. "Okay, then you're my real dad. Grandpa's just old." I laughed a little, then hugged him tighter than I probably should have, because I knew the storm wasn't over. That night, I got another call from my dad. Voicemail: "I know you hate me. I get it, but I'm not going anywhere. He's my son, and I'm going to fight this. If that means destroying what's left between us, so be it." I deleted the message without listening to the rest. The next morning, I filed a countermotion, seeking full custody. No visitation for Amanda until she agreed to supervised terms. No contact for my father, period. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about protection. Because Jake wasn't just my son or my brother. He was a kid who didn't deserve to be tossed around between liars and cowards. That week, the judge granted temporary full custody pending final hearing. I got home home that evening, took Jake to the park and just sat on a bench watching him play. He was laughing, climbing the jungle gym, completely unaware that people he trusted were fighting over him like property. And all I could think was please God, don't let him grow up to be like either of them. 2 weeks after the custody hearing, my dad showed up at my house, uninvited, middle of the afternoon. I just picked Jake up from preschool. We were eating sandwiches on the porch and there he was, standing at the gate like a scene from a bad movie. Jake saw him first. Grandpa, I stood up so fast I knocked over my coffee. No, bud, go inside, right now. Button, now. He went, didn't argue, just looked confused and walked back inside with his half-eaten peanut butter sandwich in hand. I closed the gate behind me. My dad didn't move. You shouldn't be here, I said. I needed to talk. We have lawyers for that. Not about custody. About you. About me. I didn't say anything. He looked tired. The kind of tired that no sleep can fix. But I didn't care. You said I'm nothing, he said. That I don't matter. That Jake's better off without me. He took a step forward. I didn't move. Maybe you're right, he said. But you don't get to erase me. You don't get to pretend I didn't raise you. That's when I snapped. You didn't raise me. You trained me. Like a dog. Do this. Be this. Follow the path. You wanted control, not a son. He opened his mouth. I cut him off. You were supposed to protect me. Not compete with me. Not sleep with my wife. Not steal my family. He flinched. I kept going. You want the truth? You were my hero for 30 years. I wanted to be like you. And now I look in the mirror and pray I'm nothing like you. He looked away. And I said the thing that ended it. You are not welcome in my life. Not now. Not ever. And if I ever see you near my son again, I'll treat you like any other threat to his safety. He nodded slowly. And for the first time since this all began, he cried. Not loud. No drama. Just a few silent tears. Then he turned around and walked away. I stood there until he disappeared down the street. Only then did I realize I'd been gripping the fence so hard my knuckles were white. That night, Jake asked if Grandpa was mad. I told him no. That Grandpa just needed time away to think. He seemed okay with that. Kids are resilient in ways we don't deserve. The final court date came 3 weeks later. Amanda's lawyer tried to push for 50-50 custody. Claimed she had a right to parent her child. My lawyer handed over everything: photos, texts, emails, statements from the school counselor. The judge looked at Amanda and said, you chose deception over honesty. Repeatedly. And you involved your child in that deception. She granted me primary custody. Amanda got alternating weekends. My dad's petition? Dismissed. The court ruled it was not in the child's best interest to establish legal paternity for a man who committed what they called egregious relational abuse. He didn't show up to the ruling. Coward. A few months passed. Jake adjusted. We got into a rhythm. Just us two. Pancake Saturdays. Movie nights. Sidewalk chalk on Sundays. One night, after we finished reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar, Jake turned to me and asked, are you still my daddy? I looked at him, tears already in my eyes. Of course I am. He smiled and said, good. I picked you. I tucked him in, turned off the light, and sat outside his door for an hour, just breathing. I still wake up sometimes wondering if Jake will grow up and hate me for not telling him the whole story sooner. But for now, I'm his dad.